Thank you for everyone this evening. So this is the scoping meeting. This is the scoping meeting for the Clearwater specific plan. It's a scoping session for the environmental impact report, the EIR. And I'm just going to give some quick background. The Clearwater area, so we'll have some maps in more detail, but the Clearwater specific plan is an existing area in Paramount, basically at the center of the city, and it's bound by Somerset Boulevard at the south, Rosecrans Avenue at the north, Paramount Boulevard at the east, and then the railway, Union Pacific, or the Port of Long Beach and LA Railway along the west. So the main area is the swap meet. That's the most public landowner and use is the Paramount swap meet. It's been there for many years. And what we're here for today is to take another look at this plan. So the Clearwater East specific plan has been in existence since the late 1980s. It was been changed. It's had some minor changes that the City Council has adopted through the years, and most significantly, a few years ago, allowing for housing. So housing is allowed at 22 homes per acre. And recently with the housing element, which is basically the housing plan for the City of Paramount that's updated every 8 years, the state required the city to go up to 30 homes per acre. So we have to go from 22 homes per acre to 30 homes per acre. So in order to do that, we want to do it right. This is a time to improve this plan that's been on the books for many years. It's very text-based and kind of hard to read. So we brought in a top consultant, MIG, and we have their staff here this evening to help us out, to kind of walk us through all this. We have the project managers, Ryan Kucinski will begin, and then Cameron Heil will follow with more of the specific CEQA analysis, and CEQA is California Environmental Quality Act. So, and then we'll have some follow up at the end if anyone has any questions at the end. So go ahead and take it from here, Ryan.
Great, thank you, John. And can you hear me okay? Okay, great. So for tonight, we are first going to talk about the purpose of this meeting, both from the planning and CEQA perspectives. We'll get into a description of what we are proposing as part of the draft specific plan that is being analyzed by CEQA. Then a little bit more details on the process for the CEQA analysis and documentation, and then finally for public comments. So to begin, and just to reiterate what John was saying, this specific plan update is really to implement existing housing policy that has already been adopted in the Paramount housing element, and that is to comply with updates to state legislation related to housing. But I think the advantage of updating a specific plan is this is ensuring that the community and the city get to decide where the new development is located and what it looks like. And at the same time, allowing for encouraging the swap meet to continue. And lastly, all of these things will consider and allow for this area to evolve over multiple decades.
Good evening. This slide, I'd like to discuss the purpose of the California Environmental Quality Act and the environmental impact report that we are going to prepare to analyze impacts from the proposed specific plan. The California Environmental Quality Act was adopted in 1970 by the state of California. It requires public disclosure of environmental impacts, as well as giving the public an opportunity to have a chance to have input on projects and the analysis of impacts. It's also a tool for planners to help decision makers in evaluating the benefits and disadvantages of projects. And overall, it's intended for informed planning decisions by decision makers. And the environmental impact report that we will be preparing is the most extensive CEQA document with the most in-depth analysis.
And so the purpose of this meeting then is really to merge the CEQA analysis that is going to be conducted with the recommendations that are in the draft specific plan. So that will allow for the community and other agencies to learn more about this project and provide recommendations and input that we will use to inform both updates to the draft specific plan and the CEQA analysis. Okay, so moving into description of the specific plan update and some of the draft recommendations. The first slide just shows the boundary of the specific plan area again. That is the area between Rosecrans Avenue to the north, Paramount Boulevard to the east, the Union Pacific rail corridor, which is owned by the ports of Long Beach and Los Angeles to the west, and Somerset Boulevard to the south. And that is located in the north and central part of the city of Paramount and just to the west of Paramount Park. And another big consideration for the context of this specific plan is the planned development of the Southeast Gateway line with a above grade station planned for the intersection of Rosecrans and Paramount. And it is anticipated that this station would open in the mid 2030s and would provide a connection for all the way from Cerritos and Artesia directly to downtown Los Angeles and then also facilitating transfers to the what used to be the green line, I think the C line now, and then also the A line, which was formerly the blue line. And so this process, this specific plan update was always intended to be a community-led process, and that by that meaning having the community inform what are the recommendations for the new type of development they would like to see. So this project started with visioning and stakeholder interviews, and also conducting a number of pop-up events and community meetings at different events such as Friday Night Paramount and the Eco-Friendly Fair to solicit input on early visioning ideas as well as different alternatives that were being developed. And throughout this process, we've really heard 4 consistent themes of public engagement that we've incorporated into this plan. We've heard the most that residents would like to have a mix of housing options that are affordable to them. They'd like to preserve the swap meet and the drive-in. They would love to have a mix of different ground floor commercial, shopping, restaurant, and entertainment uses, and as well as a safe place for families to walk around. And all of that together really just created this vision for a place where families can go for a Friday night date night. And so we took all of that information and we organized it into a specific plan into 7 chapters. So really chapter 1, introducing the background of the plan document and the context in the city. Chapter 2, laying out that vision and how it related to the input from the community. The 3rd chapter gets into the specific land uses that are going to be allowed and the different zones within the specific plan area. The 4th chapter provides details on the specific design and development standards. So that is, how big buildings can be and where they can be located. Chapter 5 provides guidance on the circulation routes that are going to be required in terms of new streets and parking to support new development. And Chapter 6 discusses the infrastructure related to water, storm sewer, electric, gas, and others to support that new development. And then Chapter 7 looks at implementation feasibility, considering things like phasing over time horizon, as well as the potential costs and other economic considerations of implementing the plan. So this information, as shown in Chapter 3, shows the 6 different development zones that are being proposed for the plan area. The first one to the north of the project, or the plan area as shown in red, is called the Mixed-Use Town Center. That area is envisioned to be where the most density is allowed and the tallest buildings are allowed, and really encouraging ground floor commercial uses, as this area is the closest to the future light rail station. Just to the south along Paramount Boulevard in light yellow is the town residential 40 zone. This area is intended for a maximum of 40 dwelling units per acre and a height of 50 feet. Similarly, to the south, as shown in orange, is called the town residential 65 zone. And these two zones together intend for allowing the same land uses, except for the town residential 65 zone for a slight increase in the amount of density and height that is allowed. The two teal zones along Paramount Boulevard are designated as quasi-public zones. So these are intended to preserve existing land uses that are there today, but also allowing for housing to be kind of a secondary accessory use. Moving into the interior of the site, the light blue area is being proposed as a flex district, and this is envisioned to both allow for housing, mixed-use buildings, as well as standalone non-residential buildings that really facilitate a lot of artisanal and small business type of production, such as anything from breweries to bakeries to pottery shops. And then at the southern end of the site, this area in purple is known as the neo-industrial. And this will preserve the existing Somerset Business Park located at the southeast corner, and really allow for that type of building typology and uses to be redeveloped in the existing surface parking lots and older buildings that exist in that area. And so for each of these zones, they will have a table that includes the development standards and that details what buildings will be allowed to be built in that zone. And these are all color-coded for the zone. So this one that we're showing on the screen right now is for the town residential 65 zone. So it lays out the envelope of the building in terms of how tall it can be, what are the minimum and maximum setbacks that are allowed, what is the maximum building footprint that is allowed, as well as provides standards on what are minimum unit sizes and other categories such as that. And these are really intended to create or to encourage a lot of best planning practices, including creating mixed-use structures, allowing for flexibility and uses to potentially change over time as market conditions change, but also supporting the ability for these buildings to integrate kind of the different block patterns that appear on different edges of the plan area. And also these development standards are also developed to encourage kind of a walkable and pedestrian-friendly atmosphere within the plan area. So having buildings and entrances that are oriented towards sidewalks, as well as encouraging a sustainable design in the new buildings, both through passive environmental design strategies and lowering the energy loads required by buildings. Similarly, there are strategies that come in the form of development standards and design guidelines related to the streetscape and the new circulation routes through the plan area. So these are all intended to foster a pedestrian and active transportation oriented area. Again, kind of really trying to create a traditional urban fabric that supports walking in kind of a downtown Main Street environment that excites people to walk around and spend time in the area. This plan is not anticipating any major changes to the arterial roadway surrounding the plan area. And most of the streetscape and transportation updates are going to be the new internal circulation routes, which will include a number of bicycle facilities, including a proposed multi-use path along the western edge of the plan area. And that will serve as a buffer between the existing freight operations along the rail corridor and the mixed-use structures that are proposed in the plan area. And so those public realm strategies are shown in a diagram here that we are calling the specific plan mobility concept. As you can see, the image on the right shows a hypothetical arrangement of new buildings based upon the development standards and showing the maximum build out of 2,000 units within this plan area. And on this diagram, there are a number of lines shown in black, pink, orange, light blue, dark blue, and yellow. And these represent different street typologies that will be utilized to provide access to the individual buildings and facilitate circulation through the plant area. An example of one of these street typologies is shown to the left, and this street typology shows a two-lane street with on-street parking on one side of the street, as well as sidewalks on both sides, and one of them having at least a 15-foot right-of-way that would support outdoor dining. And both as well would have a minimum of a 6-foot wide parkway to support new street trees and street lighting. And so while the location of buildings is not set, that also means that the location of the street typologies is not set as well too. But rather think of this as a kit of parts approach, and the type of street selected will be based upon the needs of the individual development. Similarly, we have a specific plan open space concept, and in this specific plan, currently we are proposing that each new development will have to provide different types of open spaces that are based on a ratio of how many units are being provided, or based upon the amount of non-residential square footage that is being provided. And right now we are identifying 4 categories of open spaces. That would be 1 being a publicly accessible open space, 2 being ground level stormwater and landscape planting areas such as bioswales. The 3rd would be resident common open space. So those would typically could be maybe a rooftop amenity space or a small outdoor barbecue space for the residents of individual buildings. And then the last category is private open space, which would include things like small yards for townhomes and balconies for apartment units. And related to that, the open space plan is the consideration for the future of the Paramount Swap Meet and Drive-In Theater. So this specific plan is encouraging and allowing for the swap meet to continue into the future. And however, we are anticipating that the size of the swap meet may change through the development of the plan area over a period of 20 to 30 years. As and the main strategy for developing this plan area is to redevelop the existing surface parking lots, which the swap meet provides vendor space on currently, as well as provides the parking to frequent the swap meet. So we are envisioning, as shown here on the previous plan, that the publicly accessible open spaces that would be distributed throughout the plan area is one strategy for where the swap meet could be held in the future as the area dedicated to the swap meet today is reduced over time. Additional strategies include allowing for the on-street parking spaces for the new circulation routes to be used by food trucks and other vendors during set times is another strategy for providing vendor space within the plan area. And then we are also, as part of the mobility plan, ensuring that parking requirements allow for an amount of vehicle parking that supports visitors to travel and frequent the swap meet into the future. So altogether, the image on the right shows a concept of what the full build out of the plan area could be based upon the maximum densities as shown in the development zones earlier. And again, the image on the right just shows kind of a conceptual idea of the types of buildings and the sizes and locations of those, but those are not set in any any concrete development plans currently. But in total, this plan would allow for 3 million square feet of new development across different land uses. It would allow for a maximum of 2,000 new residential units. So averaged out over the specific plan area, meets that 30 dwelling units per acre that is required by the state. This plan also anticipates that a number of land uses would remain. And some of those could be the existing movie theater, the existing Our Lady of the Rosary Church and School, the existing school across from Paramount Park, as well as the Somerset Business Park. And as part of the 3 million square feet of new development, we are allowing for a maximum capacity of 150,000 new square feet of retail and restaurants, and up to 800,000 square feet of new neo-industrial and office spaces. And this anticipates a need for about 4,000 parking stalls that would be held in off-street structured parking, either as above grade or subterranean.
And Ryan, can I go back, just kind of add to, just to orient anyone looking at this later? I'm showing here Paramount Boulevard, that's going north and south. And then on the south side of the plan area, that's Somerset Boulevard.
Yes.
And then just to the north would be Rosecrans Avenue. Just in case anybody's, this is going to be recorded and posted. So if anyone can see this in the future, just giving the lay of the land.
And apologies for being a planner and forgetting the things that we're familiar with every day. But the color coding for the buildings that are shown, the yellow is indicating a residential land use, and the light pink color is indicating a kind of light industrial or neo-industrial or office building. And the gray that is within the center of some of the yellow buildings or below some of the yellow buildings is indicating structured parking. So the structured parking is being proposed to be hidden behind housing. And then lastly, the green indicates for where there may be some major open spaces.
And I just one other thing to add. I guess we just want to be clear in case there's any misconceptions in the future. Obviously, the church is not going anywhere. That is the Catholic Church for Paramount. There's no intention. There's no any change to the church is voluntary on the church and the church diocese, and all the way up for them. They may voluntarily wish to add housing that the state requires cities to approve. But this, just giving that as an example, this plan is based on voluntary development. The property owner would have to want to do something and then bring it to the city for us to review by whatever the future plan would allow. So,
yeah,
just a little add in.
Thank you,
Right.
John. And then based upon those, if those maximum development capacities were built, we are anticipating, based upon the draft requirements for open space, that up to 5.5 acres of publicly accessible open spaces could be created. It could be another 1 3/4 acres of resident common open space, as well as the potential for upwards of 4.5 acres as rooftop amenity or green roof spaces. And then as well, finally, up to between 2.5 and 3 acres of different bioswale and stormwater planting areas in the ground area that would support new street trees and other landscape. And some of those type of open spaces are shown in conceptual images on the right-hand side. And so then, in summary, the CEQA document is analyzing a change from current conditions today to likely future conditions at the end of the time horizon in 2045. So in the major categories, we are studying the impacts if there was a reduction in the temporary vendor space used for the swap meet, as well as an increase of almost 1 million square feet of non-residential building square footage, an increase of about 2,000 units, and based upon the average household size in LA County, about 4,600 new residents in the planned area, and an increase of about 138 employees. And so now I will turn it over to Cameron, who will go into more detail on the CEQA analysis.
Okay, thank you very much, Ryan. Wait. Is that supposed to be there?
Sorry. I will be covering this first slide. So ultimately, there are, in addition to the environmental impact report document, there are going to have to be some updates to other documents in order to facilitate implementation of the specific plan. There will have to be additions as we are creating or proposing new zoning designations in the plan area. And these zoning designations are not in the current zoning code or general plan. So those are the mixed-use town center, the town residential 65, the flex district, and the neo-industrial. So we have to provide updated definitions for those. The town residential 40 zone is based upon a mixed-use zone that was approved as part of the North Paramount Gateway specific plan. So we just have to confirm that those two definitions are um, are the same. And then lastly, we have to update a description for the Clearwater mixed use, and that is to allow for an increased amount of FAR and residential density, again to comply with state housing requirements. But and then remove the current discussion of the residential uses that are allowed, because we are envisioning that there's a new that new multifamily residential uses will be allowed, as a wider range of those will be allowed. And so now I will turn it over to Cameron.
Okay, thank you very much, Ryan. The CEQA process moves along simultaneously with the specific plan process. From this point forward, we've been doing a lot of writing of the plan, and now we're going to get more into the writing of the environmental impact report. So we recently sent out the notice of preparation, which is required by CEQA for 30-day period. We are currently in the that notice of preparation period, and this evening, January 16th, we're holding the scoping meeting. And this, in the meantime, we have begun preparing the draft EIR, and the goal is to have a draft EIR complete sometime in this spring, to be circulated in late spring, early summer for the required 45-day public review period. The goal is to have the public circulation complete by July of 2025, have comments, responses to comments, and a final EIR complete by late summer, and to take the specific plan on the EIR to public hearing by the fall. It's a rough timeline. Sometimes there's delays. Sometimes it goes smoothly. That's yet to be seen. That's why we're here tonight. We're to solicit input from the members of the public for the environmental impact report. The topics that we look at in our environmental analysis are listed here. There are 20 resources that we analyze for both the natural and the human environment. The EIR will include a chapter for each of these resource areas. There are other components of the EIR that we include as chapters. We analyze cumulative impacts, which is the impact of the proposed project along with other projects in the area that are planned for development. We look at growth-inducing impacts such as the increase in population, the number of housing units, the number of employees in the area. Sometimes we find that there are significant and adverse unavoidable impacts that cannot be mitigated to a less than significant level. In that case, we prepare what's known as a finding of a significance finding for the city. And we also look at project alternatives. There's usually a no project alternative. And then we'll also look at lower development capacity levels and compare them to the proposed project. And finally, we will discuss irreversible long-term environmental changes as a result of implementation of the specific plan. As I said already, we are currently in the notice of preparation circulation period. Written or email comments can be submitted through February 6th to John King, interim planning director. And we encourage anybody who has any input on the planning area, potential environmental impacts that we might not be aware of, to please submit comments. And we're happy to review comments and provide responses and include analysis in the environmental impact report. And at this time, we will open it up for public comment.
So we do have light attendance, but if anyone wants to comment, we have a microphone available to step on up. But as Cameron mentioned, we welcome comments. We'd love to have as much feedback of any subtopic or any topic related to the proposed plan or the environmental impact report for this area. Maybe, and Cameron, maybe you can clarify this. It's my understanding that any comments submitted in some form gets addressed in some way.
So during the notice of preparation period, we take the comments under consideration, and we will include analysis in the environmental impact report if the comments show that there is an impact that we need to look at. If it's a planning comment, we'll take it into consideration. But when it comes to responding to public comments, that would occur after the 45-day public review circulation of the EIR. Then we would provide formal responses to public comments, and that would be included as a section of the final EIR.
Understood. And if there are just minor questions that can be addressed very, very quickly, I mean, I would also encourage members of the public in any format to, swing by City Hall, and you could talk to me specifically. I guess I didn't introduce myself. I am John King, interim planning director. So welcome to meet with anybody in person. Happy to answer any questions by email, telephone. Some organizations, I mean, they may want a meeting, to have staff go to them. So we will meet you where you are. We're happy to do that. So we don't have to wait for the full document to find out a response. If you have questions, it's our job to lead you to what the answer is.
And it's generally a good practice for the city to accept comments even after the February 6th close of the notice of preparation. You never know when we might get comments that make the EIR better, and it'd be better to get them before we circulate the document. So we don't want people to think that February 6th is a hard cutoff for, recommendations, questions, comments, concerns.
Gotcha. I appreciate that. It's not a hard, like we're closing the gates and
Right.
they're shut. So we do want the best project.
We're open to comments all the way up until we circulate the document, honestly, and then at that point it does become a formal case where people would have to submit formal comments. But at this point, it's really an open forum for the community.
Gotcha. Just one thing to add. So the project team consists of city staff, city planners, and we've did have part of the project is to get assistance from our other city departments for their expertise, whether it's economic development, public works, public safety, community services, our finance department. So it's the whole gamut of the city, and then on the consultant team, so they have planners of their own, and as you can see, California Environmental Quality Act specialists, And not only that, the team includes market research and economists and engineers. So the mobility side, the traffic engineers. So it is, but that said, this is nothing without the input of the public, Paramount residents, business owners, someone just passing through. Honestly, that's what we're all about is the public input. That's what we appreciate. Okay, but I think with nobody this evening here to would like to give comments, I think we could close the meeting. We can close the meeting. So I want to thank everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, John, for having us.
John.